Having an outstanding portfolio showcasing a variety of skills is crucial for every creative professional. Most people in the creative industry would argue that the projects you include in your portfolio is the only thing that matters when applying for a job or looking to impress clients. You can have all the diplomas, certificates and awards in the world, but if your portfolio sucks, you will be struggling to get far as a creative. How can you build a strong portfolio though if you are still studying or just planning to get into the creative industry? Join me if you want to hear my answer to that and learn about the best platforms for presenting your work. As I mentioned in the intro, in this part we will be focusing on looking at all the different platforms where you can present your work, and most of the time I'm going to spend in Behance and Dribble because in my personal opinion these are the best places, but we will also look at a lot of alternatives at the end. So first, let's talk about Behance or Behance depending on how you prefer to pronounce it. It has to be the most professional and most connected platform where you can find all kinds of different creative projects. You can search by sectors, tools, organizations, institutions, location, colors, what have you. And Behance is actually part of the Adobe Creative Cloud. It was acquired, I think, in 2014, and originally it was founded by Scott Belsky, who's an amazing entrepreneur and creative mind, and he actually wrote 2 books so far. I've read both of them. One of them is the Making Ideas Happen, and recently the Messy Middle. These are more for entrepreneurs and creative professionals who wants to start their own business or just simply creating something new. But I highly recommend to read these books if you're into these type of topics. And I guess you can already tell that I really admire his work, and I've been following Behance since the beginning, and I've been part of Behance as a creative myself, using it to showcase my work. And Behance went through a lot of changes and improvements since I first started using it, of course. And at its current state, there's a couple of things I would like to highlight that hopefully will help you to utilize this tool or platform and make the most of it. So first of all, let me just show you how to search. Well, of course, you can go to Discover, and then you can find all kinds of different curated galleries here, but you can use the search and filter option where you can really specify what you're looking for. You have creative fields categorized into popular ones, but then you can also find much more if you search here in the alphabetical list. But apart from the main filters on the left, you can also add additional filters. And this is where you can find a couple of interesting ones like color. So if you're searching for projects using a specific color, let's say I like something with more this turquoise color, you can find a lot of projects that are using that color as the main element, and you will actually see your selected color code here on the top. So the hex color code, you can find that. You can of course remove that and then refine your search based on a keyword or something else. Now, of course, once you start following people on Behance, your homepage in a way is going to be curated based on the artists that you are following, or even projects that you viewed or appreciated recently. And just like almost every social media platforms these days, Behance also joined the bandwagon and has the story feature, which they call it work in progress. And you can find it here on the top. So let's say if we are interested to see what artists are up to in the illustration sector, we can just click on this, and then these will be snapshots of the current work that they are doing. So you can find some really fresh ideas here, and you can toggle through this or even just let it slide through automatically. You can send messages to the artist, let them know what you think of their work. This is a great way to be almost present and interact with the artists, and they most likely would respond to your messages here because these are the ones that they just recently published. And you can see that you can publish also videos or time lapses. It doesn't have to be just a simple static image. When you're using the Behance app on your phone, you can even sketch. So you can do a very quick sketch and just post that as a story or as a work in progress. Now, Behance is an amazing source of inspiration. So even if you are not using it for your own portfolio, you can find so much inspiration here. And what you can do is to organize things into collections. So let's just say I select a project here, which I like. When I scroll down all the way to the bottom, or even here on the side, I can always say I appreciate this, but I can also add it to a collection. So I can follow the artist. This artist I actually already follow, but if I want to save it, I can choose which collection I want to save it into. And these collections, I can always go back and visit again. So let's just say I save it into illustration. And if I want, I can go and check out the full collection with all the previous projects I saved in there. So this is a great way to build a reference library with all the different artists and artwork that you appreciate and that you think would help you starting your own work in the future. Or for certain projects, you can even create specific collections. Now, another very interesting part of Behance has to be the live option, which is basically a live stream, or even you can consider it a TV, where you can watch creative professionals do their work. And they started doing this a while ago, so there's a lot of recorded shows already that you can watch. And these are also categorized. So if you are interested in, let's say, illustration or UI and UX, you can find loads of shows there. So if I, let's say, just go into this category, you can follow and check all of these shows. And what I really like is that because Behance is part of the Adobe Creative Cloud family, they even do shows on how they are improving tools, especially Adobe XD. You can see and follow how the tool is being developed. So you can see the developers talking and sharing the latest features they are working on. It's really exciting to see that and to be part of the development, because you can actually communicate with them live while you're watching them. So it's great to watch the recorded versions as well, but I highly recommend for you to make it into a routine to join these live streams, because you can learn a lot from them. And as someone who's also doing live streams occasionally, I know how much work goes into doing a live stream and how difficult it is to make them engaging. Adobe has the budget, of course, and they can reach and bring amazing artists to be on their live streams, but still, I think they are doing a brilliant job at it. So if you are into watching live streams, highly recommend to check it out. Now, Behance is known for very detailed projects. So if you decide to use Behance, I highly recommend to check out some highly appreciated projects and see how much detail is on each of them. So normally you would want to share not only your final artwork, but also the process that you went through. So share thumbnail sketches, share all kinds of different mock-ups that you created while working on the project. So it's really important to present your work in a very stylish and detailed way. And also, it's not all about visuals. It's important to also use copy. So share the background of the project, the story behind it, and just try to include as much information as possible without obviously being overwhelming. So here's a good example, this Google Smart Display project, where we can see the actual description, or what was the brief, the original brief. We can see the client's name, the agency, and even all the people that were involved in this project. And then we can see the actual artwork. Scroll down, we can see some concepts here. We can see some additional versions, and then we can see the outlines as well. So without colors, we can see some additional graphics created. And we can even see some ideas and animations. And finally, a thank you. This is also quite common. It became like a trend on Behance to have like a small little illustration at the end, which almost like ties up everything, and then have some links or even some downloadable assets in certain cases. So that is like a really good length for a project when you upload it on Behance. And I've talked to many creative friends of mine. Most of them, including myself, also prefer to spend at least half a day putting together a project on Behance. So even when everything is ready, it's still important to spend enough time on putting the stuff together. Some people I know actually spend a whole week just literally putting one of the projects together to present it on Behance. So it is very important to spend enough time on putting the presentation of your work together. So try not to just quickly slap things together on Behance and expect a lot of appreciation to come in. It's really important to give yourself enough time to put everything together and create a really nice polished presentation. I would like to point out another really cool aspect of Behance. You can show if you have collaborated with someone. So for this project, for example, I can show Almu Redondo, who worked with me on this project. And of course, she has to be on Behance as well, or whoever you are working with has to be on Behance. But you can even form teams. So our team, yes, I'm a designer. We also have our own projects, and we can show all the team members. So it is a brilliant platform both for individual collaborative projects or even creative teams showing the collaborative projects that they worked on together. Now, Behance is completely free, so you can create your account and use it for free, and I don't think there's any limitation of uploading work either. But what you get if you have Creative Cloud membership is the Adobe Portfolio feature, which basically means that you can have your own domain and you can synchronize projects from Behance onto your custom site. So if I click on Adobe Portfolio, this is just taking me to the page where it explains what it is and what's possible, but I can click on edit my sites, and you can actually have more sites. You can create up to 5 sites. I'm just going to go to my perhiniak.com site, which is my Adobe Portfolio site. You can see that here on the left, you can choose which projects to synchronize. So you don't have to synchronize everything. And of course, you can customize the template itself. You can decide on what pages to include. And there's another really cool feature, which I would like to point out. You might have seen my video on Adobe Stock. Now, if you have anything that you're selling on Adobe Stock, whether it's illustration, photographs, or footages, you can actually showcase those stock assets on your Adobe Portfolio. So you can see here this example, where I have a few of my work that is also available on Adobe Stock. So everything is really nicely integrated and easy to use. So to summarize, Behance is a brilliant platform, and I highly recommend to start using it if you haven't already created an account. And I recommend to only show your best work. So instead of showing all kinds of projects, focus it and narrow it down to your best work. And instead of focusing on quantity, you want to really detail and polish your presentation of the best projects that you worked on. So as long as you keep that in mind, I think you have a bright future ahead of you on Behance, and you will be able to get a lot of followers and appreciations. Now, another brilliant platform is Dribble, which is slightly different from Behance. And I would say most creatives would actually be on both of these platforms. So it's not a choice that you decide whether you are on Behance or Dribble. It's more like what you use each of them for. Now, unlike Behance here, you have shots. So it's basically a simple, small image that you upload. And these shots are almost like teasers about a project that you worked on. And I know a lot of creatives on Dribble who would include a link to a Behance project. So they would put a couple of cool images up as shots on Dribble, and each of those would link to the same project. So whoever wants to find out more information and the background and like a nice presentation, for that they would need to go on to Behance. But on its own, Dribble is again another platform where it's brilliant place to find inspiration and also save work into buckets, they call it, instead of collections. But there's another very important difference. On Dribble, although you can create an account for free, you won't be able to submit your work or create shots without first becoming a player, and you can only become a player by being invited. Now, you can get invitations from artists who are already players on Dribble, or there's a couple of other ways as well to get that invitation. But it is not a good idea to get an invitation early on. It's worth spending time on Dribble, get to know the platform, and understand how to present your work as these simple shots. Because once you actually are invited and become a player, your first submission or first shot is quite important. let me actually show you how this looks. So when you are on Dribble, under shots, you can search for popular ones or artists that you are following, but there's also an option for debuts. So if I click on that one, these are all first shots by recently joined players. Now, similarly to Behance, where we had the little ending graphics saying thank you, here the debut shots has this trend of actually saying hello to the Dribble community. So instead of just posting a work, most artists would create a specific artwork, like this one here is a good example, which is showing the artist's style, but with an artwork that was created specifically to say hi to the Dribble community. So it's definitely worth taking your time first getting to know the platform before you introduce yourself. And once you became a player and you have a couple of shots and you have some interest from people starting to follow you, you can decide to go pro and upgrade. Now let me show you this. It's here on the right side. We can go down and then we can find a good comparison showing us that as a player, what options you have or what features you can access. And as a Dribble Pro user, which is currently $5 a month, if you are doing annual subscription, you can get all of these additional options, out of which I think the most interesting ones are the video shots, the recommendations for projects. This basically is helping you to find clients or clients finding you. And also you get to sell goods. So in that way, Dribble becomes almost like a marketplace as well, where you can sell your artwork or even brushes or templates and so on and so forth. Now, similarly to Adobe Live or Behance Live, Dribble also has a lot of additional resources and inspiration for creatives. So you can find all of these under community. So they have a really cool blog. They have their own meetups, and they also have a podcast called Overtime. Both Dribble and Behance can help you to find jobs and to apply for these jobs. So on Dribble, you just have to go to jobs and you can start filtering for locations, type of work, and so on and so forth. While on Behance, if we go back there, we can again find jobs. And again, we can search for jobs based on whether they are full-time, even internships you can find here, and you can choose again the location. So it is quite similar on both of these sites. And when it comes to looking for jobs, again, it's good to be present on both of these sites and be active, because there's a higher chance you can find a fitting role for yourself. Now, besides Dribble and Behance, of course, there's a lot of additional sites that's worth mentioning. And I just collected here the most famous alternatives, but this is not in any way an extensive list. And it would take hours to go through all of them and to compare them properly. So instead, I would like you to just check them out and see which one you prefer. Maybe I just mentioned that ArtStation and DeviantArt are more for digital artists, especially ArtStation, where most concept artists and 3D artists would be hanging around and presenting their work. Just to highlight a couple of interesting things, on Coroflot, you can find the salaries option where you can search for certain job roles and locations, and you can see what can you expect, like what is the average salary for that role in that location. And I like the fact that they also show you how many salaries were actually used to create this average from. And if you want to dig deeper, you can even find more statistics here, even gender split in that sector that you are interested in. And I also wanted to mention that most of these sites are very simple to use, so no coding needed. It's basically drag and drop builders, all of them. But of course, if you want to create something completely unique, something that you built from scratch, you can also use tools like WordPress. And our website is also built in WordPress, so we started off using it just as a blog. But of course, we have a lot of additional things going on since we started. And WordPress is a brilliant tool, which means that you can fully customize everything and you can integrate a lot of additional things into it, like our podcast. Recently we started. If you haven't checked this out, you can find it on our site, and we have a few episodes already on it, but we are going to release more in the future. So if you like podcasts, you can find us on Spotify and also on iTunes and all the other places that you would look for podcasts. And the tool that we actually use for our WordPress site is called Thrive Architect and all the different Thrive tools. This is again something that turns WordPress into almost like a drag and drop builder. So if you want to avoid hiring a developer, or if you want to avoid coding as much as possible, Thrive is a brilliant plugin that makes WordPress much easier to use. I am not sponsored by Thrive or any of the sites that I mentioned, so these are all my honest recommendations, and believe me, I've tried so many different tools and ways to present my work in the last 15 years or so. Now, if you are just starting out and you're not sure what to include in your portfolio, here's a couple of recommendations. Of course, you can include your personal projects as well, and even projects you worked on at university or college. It's not like a rule that you can only show work done for professional clients. Some interviews, they might ask you whether the projects you showed are for real clients or not. Again, it might not be a negative thing. It's just good to be honest about it. So if you include personal projects or projects that you worked on as a student, definitely make it clear that it's not for a real client. Another thing worth doing if you feel like you don't have enough projects or work to show is to take part in competitions. Now, we are working on other videos where I'm going to go into much more detail explaining how to utilize crowdsourcing sites, but just to mention it briefly, we recommend 99 Designs being one of the best platforms where you can find projects to work on. And even if you don't win these projects, you can still showcase the work that you've done in your portfolio. Again, mention that this was done for a client on a crowdsourcing contest. And even though you didn't win, maybe you were a runner-up, but this is the work that you created for that client. And then there's also Talent House and Creative Allies, where you can work on interesting projects like for movies, creating posters or album covers for artists. But again, these are contests and you might not win, but still, the fact that you worked on something, it's enough to be able to present it in your portfolio if you think it's good enough for that. Now, if you just simply need some ideas on what to work on and what to create as personal projects or explorations, or just to produce some additional work, but you don't want to be pressured to work for a real client and you don't want to be stressed out taking part in a contest, you can also find really cool projects on 1-minute briefs and Briefbox.me. So these are just simply giving you ideas what to work on. And I highly recommend to check these out as well. And if you just generally struggle to share the work that you do, I recommend this book from Austin Kleon called Show Your Work. It's a very quick read. It doesn't take long to go through it, but it gives you a lot of boost and confidence and inspiration to help you understand why it is important and how to present your work and show your work. And if you like this author, he has also 2 other really good books, generally written for creatives. So highly recommend to check them out. Of course, for everything that I'm mentioning, all the links are in the description below. That's all we had time for in this video, but in the next part I'm going to go into much more detail on how to actually build your portfolio and what are the different things that you should pay attention to. Subscribe to our channel if you don't want to miss that part, and also hit the little bell icon to actually get notified whenever we release a new video. Let us know in the comment section what would you like us to cover next time on this series. Click on the link in the description or the join button to become a member if you want to work on future projects with us and see the whole design or illustration process live. Thanks a lot for watching, like and share this video if you enjoyed it. Have fun learning, guys, and I will see you in the next one.